Okay, it's just for the launcher. It's not for the actual engine. So I guess somewhere in the engine.
itself. Okay.
Figure out later.
We're on a mission, but today we will be mostly sort of following my screen. We won't need your projects open, so more note taking and just a little bit of homework for next week because I love it's my new thing now. I love to give you guys a bit of work to do over the week if you can manage it, but if not, it's not the end of the world.
Sounds fun.
So yeah, with that being said, recording has started. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Make sure it's the right one. 720, 30 FPS. Cool. Here we go. For those of you who are tuning with us for the first time, maybe let's do a quick intro, I guess. Joining us today, we have Ray from China, I believe, an intro from me. Welcome, Ray.
Thank you. I think something wrong with my camera. I just can't open it. I don't know why.
It's all good. All good. We can work it out. Discord has some funny games with this kind of stuff, but not the end of the world. We have Kat and June. Do you want to introduce yourselves as well, guys?
Sure. Yeah. I'm Kat. I studied game design for I guess around 10 years. And Jun and I we live in Korea. So he's Korean.
안녕하세요. That was hi in Korean. I'm Korean. I'm Gun. Hi. I'm a 3D motion graphic designer. I use Blender mostly, and I'm curious about Unreal Engine, so I applied.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
just joined.
I joined.
Nice, nice. And last but not least, me.
I'm an architecture designer, gone a bit rogue. I left architecture for like 8 years, and now I'm desperately trying to get back. And I would love to be able to put my stuff in Unreal and kind of start experiencing it a bit more dynamically than normally in my little hand drawings.
Sweet,
And
sweet,
also,
sweet.
just a note on Ray, we met up. Well, we bumped into each other. I don't know, a couple weekends ago in London at the Bartlett. There was a show by the cinematic and video game architecture course, and we both were like very early over there trying to learn more about what they do. And then we got talking, and then yeah, somehow we talked about Unreal Engine, and then I mentioned this thing, and here we are.
Sweet, sweet, sweet. Was there any chat about real time technology and stuff over there?
How do you mean it?
I don't think so.
Cool. I like it. I like it. I like it.
It was like a student show, so they were showing all the projects that they've done in the year. It's a 1 year master's course. So there was a bunch of VR stuff, AR stuff, and then some people just did like video games or documentaries.
Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Nice. Well, very nice. Well, thanks everyone. I guess myself, where do I even start? I have zero experience in Unreal Engine. I'm just watching YouTube videos and going along with the flow. No, I'm only kidding. I've been using Unreal now, as the years go by, probably about 9 years now. Back when it was Unreal Engine 4 originally. So I've sort of seen it progress. And the good thing is, when if you start learning from Unreal Engine 4, you sort of have to really understand the bare bones of the engine and how it works to do optimization. You're getting the right models, making the right blueprints as such. Whereas now, as the more it's progressing into Nanite and Lumen, which we'll get deep dive more into over the workshops, I want to say it's become a bit more of a lazy engine because it's also we have high-end graphics that compensate for this laziness. So I don't want to promote that in any sort of way, but obviously if it's used at the end of the day to make high quality games and renders and visuals, so it does have its place in the industry. but primarily for these workshops, we'll be using it more like a pre-visualization tool with hopefully a little bit of an end goal. Now, if you guys want to take it a bit further on your end, building a mobile version or a desktop version or a VR version, I'll leave that totally up to you. We can discuss it over some workshops as such, but the end output is completely down to you. With that being said, I do have downloads. I do have some ideas based off our last conversation of our previous workshops. And for those of you who weren't there, we were sort of debating whether we can combine all the different learning outcomes into sort of one project. And we talked a little bit about, let me bring up last week's notes, doing some water, realistic water, fog carts, advanced environment lighting, using Niagara, I found it, it's Niagara, not Niagara, visual effects
All right.
particle system. I've always been searching Niagara and I've always been able to correct it. And we were talking about doing some PCG, foliage, maybe even some event triggers like we did on last workshops, AI bots, and etc. so on, a lot of different variety of things. Now, I had a bit of a think and I came down to sort of this image and sort of some roughly other ones as well. Building on a hill, that's a bit stylized. And what I want to achieve with this basically is I want us to create all of these elements and incorporate everything I've just said into one outcome. We're going to play around with some renders as well, just for the fun of it. But ideally, we want to build a little fun, interactive game as well. So we are going to choose as a collective one of these images, and we're basically going to try and copy it in our own stylized way, let's say. So what we'll start off with is obviously we need the landscape, the bare bones, so the hilltops. It doesn't have to be this detailed. We can focus on a little section of the image as such. We don't have to go really, really far. Plus, if we want to, that's why we're going to build our beautiful little fog cards to disguise the background as well. So we can go for something a little bit more, was it the dreamy one? Yeah, the dreamy one was my favorite. Something a bit more, you see, we can have some nice fog in the background, sunset, nice skyline, maybe a little city in the back with some lights in the night. And we're going to create our foliage initially, but then we're going to convert it to PCG where we can apply multitudes of the same foliage and optimize a little bit on performance. We're going to work with water. We're going to work with bringing in a pre-made structure into Unreal. We won't make this. We'll bring in a house. We can each get our own house on Sketchfab or Unreal Marketplace if we have one that we like. I think this will also look good on a portfolio as well. So again, you can choose something that will benefit you in your portfolio. If you want to use it in that way, that's totally fine. And yeah, sorry, after this, we're going to interact with this environment. So we're going to play the game either as a third person or first person, whatever you prefer. The following of the workshops will be quite similar. And or we can use the third person stuff we created previous workshops, but some of us haven't. So maybe we'll make some new ones from scratch. And then we'll have some nice little bots running around, which we'll be able to shoot or throw fireballs at. And where the Niagara comes in, we're going to create this, maybe some nice rain VFX just to add to the environment. And we wanted to interact with the water, I believe, soon. So maybe we can make those rain droplets have some splash when they fall into the water. Something like that. As we go, we can digress, we can change things up a little bit. But how does that sound overall?
Yeah, this sounds really fun.
So I don't want to here.
I think it's super groovy. Yeah.
Groovy. Ooh. Yeah, we're gonna have that issue if you guys join together, so be aware of that. One mute, one unmute. Give a little finger sign or something. Have a white flag. Cool. So,
Yeah, sorry.
oh, good. What happened there? Cool. So from these images, ooh, that's the same one, just a different angle. This one actually was my favorite. We could play with it, but again, we don't. The angle of the camera. We can digress a little bit. Like I said, last workshops, everyone ended up with pretty much the same output with the fire, but everyone's landscapes was a little bit different. So I'm happy for you to guys explore in whatever way you want with that. So it doesn't have to be, bang, bang, bang on. But
I think doing an alternate lighting rather than just, I think daytime lighting is pretty easy to do in Unreal Engine
yeah,
compared to like sunset or nighttime.
yeah,
There's
I would
not very
agree with
many tutorials on the alternate times. So sunset one I think would be really fun to like figure out together.
Cool. Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, I will agree with that primarily because now the fun thing is I'm just gonna tell you guys from now, we're gonna do it, and then I'm gonna show you there's a plugin that does it for you. But that's the whole point.
Oh,
Is
really?
if you do it first, you will know what to look for in that plugin. If I just tell you the plugin, then you're gonna download it, you're gonna use it, but you won't really know how to utilize it very, very well without understanding what components fall under it. Like in Unreal, sometimes if you want to save on performance, you will create a sphere as a sky or half a sphere for a hemisphere, rather than completely illuminating the whole area. You can create a sphere with a white material and automatically will illuminate your whole environment. So we're going to look at optimization tricks as well as we go along with the sky.
All right. Yeah,
Cool.
so not just using an HDRI or the sky sphere, the other methods.
Yeah, we could look at the global illumination pre-built stuff in Unreal as well. The one that we pretty much used last time, I think, right? With the Control Shift L, we could direct the sky
Oh yeah.
orientation and stuff. I'm assuming that's what you meant by easy, because literally that you just add into a project and you're good to go.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you turn to nighttime, then the skies look a bit, the clouds don't look a bit realistic as such. But yeah, we'll focus each workshop on an element of this. So we'll break it down. One will do water, one will do Niagara, got caught out again. One will do foliage, one will do landscape. Some of this stuff, though, like I said, in terms of homework, it would be good to come a bit prepared. So, like, I don't want to waste time in the workshop just sculpting. It would be nice if you can come the next workshop, so let's say with the sculpted hillside that you want. Don't add the water or anything, just come with a sculpted, because we've already covered that in the first workshops. There's a lot of workshops out there as well, tutorials online about how to sculpt. So I don't think we need to put another workshop into it unless you want to, unless you're having real difficulties and you need something specific done. But something as simple as a valet, I think, should be pretty straightforward to achieve some sculpting.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Yeah.
Very, very possible.
And the rest are all building blocks, right? We can add all the effects. Coolio. So, that's what we're gonna do over the next couple of weeks, I guess. I don't have a clear vision of how long this is gonna take, but I give or take about 7-8 weeks, something like that, depending on how far we want to take it with the game interaction stuff later on. But first we're gonna finish this off with a render, and then we're gonna move on to more blueprint hard-coded stuff, I guess, for more like Milo, more stuff that Milo wants. We don't wanna keep him waiting for too long.
Yeah. Yeah, he wants the more technical stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, you want that too?
Yeah.
Okay. The boys want the technical stuff.
Well, technical, yeah, PCG foliage. PCG, we're gonna do some technical stuff with the foliage, so there will be some blueprints involved. The water stuff definitely has some material blueprints involved. Lighting, not so much. Niagara, it's I'm just gonna call it Niagara. It's end of story. Yeah, it's in the pipeline. It's in the pipeline. Coolio. So what you're looking at here today is a project I've purchased quite a while ago because it's helped me out a lot with my Archviz configurator stuff. Now I wanted to show it just a project basically because we're gonna go through some game engine settings. We're gonna focus on that today and how we can utilize that, how we can utilize some TXT files across projects, editor appearances, how we can customize it, deploying to different outputs, maybe look at some tools for revision control. So in case you're building something that you're building with a team and you want to have it backed up on a cloud and you want people to collaborate on that same project, we'll look at that because that's quite useful. Generally, tips and tricks, a bit more intermediate than what we've covered in the previous workshops. So, project settings. I always have it open, plugins, fab should be literally second on the list because it's the most used. But if you can't find it, you go to oops, sorry, I made the wrong thing. Window, edit, project settings, and edit preferences. We're going to look at today. So in project settings, you can filter by all settings, and if you're looking for something specific, as always, you can just search it. So going down the list, I'm just going to cover a few of these because they are quite important and quite repetitive project to project. I'm going to show you a way we can minimize that repetition. So maps and modes, pretty important. We covered this in the last workshops, but I just want to iterate. When we open up our project, this map is what's gonna open first. So by default, when you create a brand new project in Unreal Engine, you're gonna get Unreal Engine's default map. To change that, we can go into here, and under there you can select anyone you have already or search it like always. And the same for the game default map. If you launch a game, so if I go to my Unreal Engine default place and I hit standalone game, which this is going to launch a brand new executable window, that's what's referred to this. So we want to launch pretty much our game instance project, the one that has the master blueprint that controls the whole game. If you're not playing a game, no need to worry. Just set the editor default startup map. Moving down, if you are working with any videos that you want in your projects and you're packaging a project for future reference, you want to embed your movies here. Sorry, startup movies. So if you're launching a project and it's going to play something first initially before it goes into the game, I highly recommend that most of the time because you're going to get Unreal Engine's beautiful logo instead. And as beautiful as it looks, you might want to create your own little GIF or video or logo for your packaged games. If it's in a GIF format or .mov, I believe it's AVI, .avi and .mov are the supported, and MP4, sorry, are the supported platforms. So feel free to import them there. Packaging. If you are building a game, we covered this again briefly, but this sort of stuff up top I won't really cover. That's a bit more advanced, but in the project settings down below in the build configuration, this can be overridden, but it's nice to have it set to the default that you want just in case you forget. So Development will ship with not your debug code, but it will deploy print strings. So if you do any sort of coding that's got a string in it, which is basically a text up top that tells you error or a value or something that you predefine, it will show that when you play the game. So when you want to when you want to package your game for a platform like the App Store or Android Store, or whatever that is, Play Store, sorry, I forgot the name, you would want to deploy for shipping. Debug is debug. I recommend that if you are packaging your game and you want to test it. So if you want to send it out to a lot of users to test, it'll be nice to have that enabled so you can get a list of all the things that are going wrong. And basically, yeah, I wanted to cover that because that's quite important, because that gets missed sometimes when you we tried this in workshop 12 before, but sometimes it gets missed. You can do it here if you go to platforms and you go to Windows, let's say, and package project. You've got here your binary configuration, which you can change, but in case you forget, use project settings is always by default. So if I change project settings to shipping, God forbid, you're gonna do it, it says shipping there. Coolio. And supported platforms. If you do not see all these down here, or if you want to save space on your computer and you don't need these, you don't work with Mac, Linux, iOS, Android, you only work with Windows, if you go to your Epic Games launcher and you go under your version and you search options, you have a list of stuff here. Starter content, again, if you never use starter content, feel free to remove it, it's quite handy. Templates, features, engine source, this can get quite hefty as you go. So Linux is 15 extra gig, so bear that in mind. If you want to remove it, I primarily just work with Android and Windows is obviously will install it by default, but the rest you have to tick if you're actually going to use them and utilize their settings, and you have to hit apply and it will download them. So that's in under the launcher, under Epic Games options. Target hardware. Ooh, unspecified. Nice. That's new. That's the first time I've seen that. Okay, it means it deleted it from the. Ooh, okay. So because this is a project I bought, maybe they've changed the settings. But usually here, you're either gonna see by default when you create a game. If you create a mobile, if you create a project, if you launch a new project and you select mobile, obviously these settings will adjust for mobile. If you create for desktop, it will adjust for desktop. So these will vary depending project to project. Now, what this means is target hardware is what we're going to package to. So if you're working for mobile, if you're working for desktop, which is either Windows, Linux, or iOS, but the desktop version. And most importantly, this is one thing I wanted to emphasize. You'll probably get this option when you create a brand new project as well. You can define whether you want your engine scalability settings to be maximum or scalable. Now, I highly recommend scalable for starters. If you're working with ArchViz and you're doing high quality renders, I recommend maximum. But be wary, maximum means good GPU. So scalable is, it varies. You can go from a low GPU to a higher end GPU and you can adjust the settings in Engine. You know, when you play a game and you have this like window size, you can change from 1280 to full HD, or you can minimize it, crop it. This is what I mean by sort of scalable and maximum. Maximum will be the full res. Scalable, you can actually adjust that. So it will actually benefit you if you're doing an application that you want to fit both for mobile, desktop, and other devices in VR. If you're doing a cross-platform integration, Scalable is the way to go. So I highly just most pretty much 90% of the time just use Scalable, primarily for real time as well. We're gonna skip a couple of these because I barely even touched them, but feel free to go in and dig. I highly recommend that. And what I want to focus on next is if we scroll down to engine rendering. Now this is where the magic happens. This is where we kill our GPU basically. Mobile I won't really get into, is a bit more complicated. What I want to focus on is retro textures, no. Working color space. If you are working with any media encoders, if you're working with After Effects, Premiere, DaVinci, what else? I can name millions. And they work with different color space, and you know what these are, and you know how to play with them. Feel free to play around. It's totally up to you. I won't know how to fix those issues perfectly, but I can help as always. So feel free to explore with these, especially if you're working with real cinematic cameras as well, which we might do a bit of that later on. Global illumination. We looked at this briefly. Now this is this section here: global illumination, lumen reflections, hardware ray tracing, software ray tracing is what you will focus on the most project to project. Like I said, for ArchViz, you want to max these out as much as possible. If your GPU can handle it, enter at your own risk, I would say. I don't want to change this right now because it's going to change and compile all my shaders. This application is low because it's built for VR and Windows, so it's scalable. So you can change these. What these are, reflection capture resolutions, is when you use a lot of materials in your scene that has reflections, metallic surfaces, glass, refraction, all that stuff. This is the resolution that well, this basically for this value would increase the resolution in the pixels. So 2048 is the max I would go before you blow stuff up. 1024 is also reasonable, but if you want to optimize for lower end devices, you can stick with the default 128. Planar reflections is another way of forming reflections in Unreal. We won't really cover that because it's not going to be in our workshops later. We might look into it for the water because it saves a lot on performance. So if you do want to have a little research in your own time, it's not 100% sure we will use it, but have a look at planar reflections. It's a very optimized way and a bit of an old school way of using reflections in Unreal Engine, back in Unreal Engine 4. Where was it? Where is it disabled? Is it disabled? Cool. This is enabled for this project. When you start a default project in Unreal, Lumen will hardware ray tracing will be disabled. Now, this is very important. If you use higher end GPUs, you will allow you to increase your settings to get a nicer result. If you, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You can read it a lot in the tooltips that it says when you hover over. But again, depends on your graphics cards and your RHI, which RHI I should know if I search it. What does it stand for again? Anyway, it's your direct drivers, DirectX drivers. So if you have a lower end graphics card, you'll probably use DirectX 11. If you're working with Android, iOS, tablets, etc., you'll probably be looking at Vulkan. And this is basically essentially just for shaders. So when we're talking about rendering, we're just talking about our shaders, how they compile, how they work in the engine. So obviously, as our computation gets better, as our DirectX drivers get better and improve, our performance with these engines get a lot better as well. So it goes hand in hand. So that's why it's important to keep your drivers up to date, but also be wary of any bugs that might affect your game engines as well. So keep that in mind. It's super important.
Can I ask, what do you consider lower end GPU and higher end GPU? So there's like
Well, for years, I've been doing my job on a laptop with a 2060, basically, for many, many years, for at least 4.5 years. All our previous workshops were done through that laptop. That was recording the session, live Discord, running Unreal. So I would say that's mediocre. Mediocre. Higher end
all
is
right.
obviously the brand new ones, if you can afford them, and lower end, I would say. Well, actually, sadly, the 2060 is now becoming the lower end. So I would say, yeah, I would say that the 200, the 2000 series is your lowest end, lower end.
All right. So for the 20 series, you should be using the more like conservative settings, I guess. And if you have like 30 series and higher, you can go all out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, feel free to try. The worst thing that can happen is your graphics card will crash and the engine will crash. Now, it's not great. It's like, what's an analogy I can give here? It's like hitting the kill switch on a machine that you can just turn off with a button, but in case when you do the kill switch, it completely shuts the power off. So yeah, feel free to try. Increment. Go 256. It says here values of 2, power of 2. So increment. Anyway, in the eyeball, you won't really understand if like the 124 and the 248. Yeah, I spend a few weeks trying to distinguish the difference. So it's very, 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 very minute. Very, very minute.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Elongated answer to your question. Lower series 20, higher series the newer ones. But also this Unreal have started to shift this stuff a little bit more towards the CPU. So I would say it's a bit of a balance. I would say you need to have a good CPU and GPU to work both. The GPU, if you're working with real time, this is why you need to know what you're going to use the engine for. For me, when I want to use it for renders and game engine and game design and what sorts, I have to get a well-rounded PC for all these things. So I have to compensate with certain things. If you're going for render purely, you're going for AMD Threadripper that's got like 24 plus cores, 48 cores, maybe more cores. When you hit the render button, within seconds, it's all CPU. So it really depends what you want to use the engine for. If you're going for more real time, now they recommend brand new graphics cards because they've got, I think, 16 gigabytes of VRAM. I've never really in my head understood what that's all about. I think it's just flexing numbers, and they've always had it. We just haven't known it. Before they were like 2 gigabyte VRAM, maybe 3 gigabyte. Max had it for ages actually. So yeah, varies a lot. Probably didn't answer your question.
Yeah. I answered it well. Thank you.
No worries, no worries. Nanite, again, not my favorite. Is like the AI of 3D modeling. It's a bit of a lazy way of 3D modeling. I won't get into it in this workshop. I haven't. It's been around for years, and I literally haven't even touched it yet, except the models that come in already with Nanite. I've just disabled pretty much. It's a lot to get around it. Forward shading. So this is actually what I wanted to get to. Forward shading, forward rendering, and where is it? Anti-aliasing methods. So we have deferred rendering and forward rendering. Now I'm going to share this as always in the workshop chat later, but this is something I highly recommend reading through to understand a bit more performance in Unreal Engine and where you're losing frames and how it looks on different devices. Because don't be fooled, if you're working with a Windows that's got a higher end GPU and you need to deploy to an Android application, you need to be able to see what that Android is going to see as well. So you need to work with those settings. That's why in here in Unreal, we have here our anti-aliasing method, which I'll also share a bit more about what that is. It's basically the shaders. Like I said before, anything in the rendering section is all about the shaders and how Unreal computes all those shaders and materials. If I take focus point somewhere here, let's say on this beautiful little cabinet, we can already see some glitchiness happening. That's from my lumen settings. Now if I change this from the max temporal super resolution, which is primarily mostly for Windows, if I change it to the OG legacy fast approximate anti-aliasing method and I go back, you can start to see we've created a few more artifacts. I'm not sure that translates through Discord viewer, but if I quickly change that back, let me put that to the side. If I go TSR, you can see it's starting to crisp. If I go, let me say A, it's starting to fade away. And actually this is more apparent with like lighting counters. So you can see materials, you can see the lighting bouncing behind this vase. It's very jittery and laggy. And if I go to temporal super resolution, it's now smoothed it out. And this happens to work with the DirectX shaders and your graphics cards drivers as well. So this is all sort of like a package. Now this is what I mean by like increasing the settings a little bit. This is by default now, but obviously the number of times it computes this you can change. So if you're working with a lower end computer, you can adjust this. If you're working with a higher computer, more for archivist stuff, you can increase this as well. These will become a lot more apparent when you use them in the applications that you intend to basically, and we will play around mostly with MSAA and TSR. I think that's our mostly common ones, unless we're going for mobile, which is probably going to use fast approximate. Anything else about the settings? Lumen, obviously, yeah, we're using Lumen, but if you are going for less real-time workflow, I'd recommend using actually none. If you're going for a baked scenario, so if you're baking your lighting into the scene, into the textures, and you're packaging your game for optimized devices or for higher performance, I would recommend using none. If you're going for a more real-time approach, I recommend using Lumen. Again, you can use Lumen for rendering and stuff like that as well, and for baked lighting, but it doesn't help a lot with performance, and we're going to see that as we start putting. We haven't really seen the impacts on performance before in our previous scenes. Once we start adding foliage and we're causing the lighting to create shadows with the leaves and the trees, we're going to see our frame rate just go bloop. So this is where we have to work with baked lighting or Lumen or partially baked lighting as well. We can look at that. It's super, super, super important for performance. I had a virtual showroom application running on the web at about 16 frames a second with Lumen, which was terrible. And then I did a test with none and baked lighting, and it came up to about 96 frames per second, and it was crazy. So really depends what we're going for, but keep that in mind for baked scenarios versus non-baked real-time scenarios. Anybody know about path tracing? Curious. Hardware ray tracing.
I don't. Do you, June?
I've heard about
I didn't know.
Cool.
We've
Very
heard of
cool.
it.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've got an idea what it is. I've never really understood how it works, but I'm pretty much me is the best person to explain to us because he uses a LiDAR scanner, which actually works in exactly the same way.
it.
How's a LiDAR scanner work, me?
I didn't know that had a relation to ray tracing, but with LiDAR, I don't know if you know those laser measure things that has one point that you just click and it tells you how far the point hit is. The LiDAR scanner basically is the same, but it just does that 9 million times or more. So in our machine, it has like a little thing that goes like this. So it keeps shooting the lasers, but then also spins like this. So as it's done the full circle, or actually half a circle, it's got kind of the locations of everything, and then that's how it makes a 3D space.
3D, it's been reconstructed basically to a 3D model, essentially, into a point cloud model, which is pretty sick. For more info on that, doing a bit of sponsor, look at Cloudy Works projects. They are on the money. Now, in obviously our game engine, it works exactly in the same way. How does our software know how to compute shaders, lighting, shadows, and all this stuff, right? It's basically firing out a bunch of lasers, whether it's hardware related or software related, which obviously without the hardware you can't get the software. And does the same thing, bunch of lasers, whatever information it catches back, it reproduces. Now what path tracing does is basically that on steroids. It gives you a very realistic representation of what your environment should look like in terms of lighting. And that's why it takes a bit more time to render a frame of path tracing versus Lumen as such, which is more real-time applications. They're trying to build path tracing into real time, which when they do that, it will be insane. What we're seeing now is basically something fake, smoke and mirrors. Hey, hey, hey. For those of you who know the pun, it's all essentially fake lighting trying to be rebuilt in a way. Whereas path tracing will give us an actual close to realistic representation of what that would look like. Now, when we do Archviz renders, or even when we do our render, maybe later for that beautiful little home that we chose, we're probably gonna choose. Actually, I don't want to burn your computers, but maybe I'll do a path tracing one. You can do a Lumen classic render, and then we can compare the results. So I'll let my computer fry. Just gonna have a good day, good night's sleep, and then we can see the results. Actually, that might look quite cool, and you will see distinguish the difference between the two renders. That's why they take a little bit longer, but again, important for really high detailed like objects or archviz or something like that. Was that it from project settings? Yeah, okay, so hardware ray tracing, software ray tracing, that works in the same way. More about the default settings. Now, Unreal for some reason like to put a lot of stuff in there that we don't really need, but it's basically sort of proofing. I don't want to say the word before proofing. It's proofing it for some people, which is great starting off, but now we're getting a bit more advanced here, so we want to play around with some of these. Now, auto exposure is one thing I found that has completely messed up my whole lighting scenarios in Unreal. So if you want to get as close to realistic lighting as possible, you need to remove auto exposure from the checkbox here. What that does is basically, if you're in a, it's actually, auto exposure works with how our eyes work in real time, but we don't want that in the engine. It can deceive us a little bit. We want to see purely what we're seeing. What I mean by that is, if we're in a dark room and we go to a bright space, our iris does something. I'm not sure if it closes or opens, I can't remember. It creates that effect right in your eye. And when you do the reverse, if you go from a bright space into a dark room, your eyes need some time to adjust. Auto exposure works in exactly the same way. Sometimes it could be handy for your games, but I very rarely see. Actually, I think in 5.4, I might be wrong, but I think in 5.4 or 5.5, they actually now started to disable it by default. So they've listened to the community. Yay. So just bear that in mind. If it's on, I suggest turning it off. Experiment with it. See how it works. You know, if you're happy with it, fine. I tend to turn it off. And if I need to play with it, I will play with it in the post-process volume, which basically is the after effects of our scene. We covered that. We covered briefly post-process volumes in the last workshops, right? Everyone know what that is? Or remember? Need a refresh?
Yes, I do. I do at least.
Cool. Me I said cool. Post-process volume is the geyser. Where is it? The levels. Find it. Lighting. Doesn't have post-process volume. This guy's got so many levels.